Hello and welcome along to this presentation of Creativity Unleashed. To see what it's all about, let's get on to the next slide. Creativity, a noun, the quality or ability to create or invent something. Unleashed, this is the internet definition, transitive verb to free from or as if from a leash, to let loose. Let's see what this creativity is all about, what's been unleashed here. To begin with here, a statement of undeniable fact, otherwise known as an axiom. Every creation must have a creator. If you don't believe or don't agree with this statement, then you're probably wasting this time listening to this presentation. You can go and watch YouTube videos of fluffy cats playing with bouncy balls or whatever tickles your fancy. Now here is a picture of Mona Lisa. She is a creation. Here is the creator, Leonardo da Vinci, looking very happy, of course. Okay, Jaws, Indiana Jones, we have E.T., Jurassic Park, Schindler's List, and Saving Private Ryan, all creations of Steven Spielberg. He does have a team, of course. He's not just the only one behind these things, but he was instrumental in getting it all together. And here he is looking quite young in his prime, I guess, although he still is and just keeps making better and better movies. But he is sort of recognized as a creator to these creations. When I show you a picture of Apple computers, probably Steve Jobs might appear to mind as being the creator of these things. Obviously, again, he had a team, very talented people that worked very hard, very diligently, and they came about these products. But again, all of these products had their creator. I can show you these sculptures here. You may or may not be familiar with them. Some kind of a cardboard guitar, I guess. Here's a big statue somewhere in Chicago, and this is on in a museum somewhere. These are what we could call creations, artistic creations, sculptors, and they have a creator. These are from Pablo Picasso, quite a famous artist, sculptor, painter, womanizer, you name it. He's probably been there and done that. But he is the creator, and these are his creations. Here are some more sculptures for you to look at. This is something you may be familiar with. This is in a museum. It's about 3 to 4 feet wide, whereas these other two on either side, this is quite infinitesimal in size. This is probably no smaller than a needle's head. This is a gold flake, and gold flake, stibnite crystal, and bismuth, which is some kind of a mineral, looking very glamorous. Here we have snowflakes. Now, these aren't creators or creations of any person that we know of, but they are creations, as we call them, when you look at the artistic value of them. I'll read out this statement here. A single snowstorm generates trillions of individual snowflakes. Scientists have estimated each snow crystal contains around 10, and this number here is a quintillion, that's 10 with 18 zeros after it, 10 quintillion water molecules. The number of ways these molecules can arrange themselves is nearly infinite, which is why no two snowflakes will be exactly the same. If you can find two snowflakes exactly the same, bring them into me, I'll give you the grand prize. That'll be a chocolate fish. If you can bring 3 snowflakes in exactly the same, you can have two chocolate fish, that is. Do you know what this is? And these are similar forms. Okay, here's the original one we saw, I guess. Brothers and sisters and cousins and aunties and uncles. These things, under polarized light, as you see, are also very beautiful. These are diatoms. Diatoms producing 50% of the air we breathe. You probably didn't even know they existed. Despite the importance of diatoms to all life on Earth, scientists still do not fully understand how they operate or relate to their environment. There's some kind of algae. So obviously that means they're a plant life, and they would take in carbon dioxide and breathe out oxygen. And again, if they're producing 50% of the air that we breathe, very important to the cycle of life. These things here looking even more radical, definitely more weirder than the diatoms that we just saw. Quite beautiful depending on your perceptions of beauty, though that is in the eye of the beholder, of course. These things here are Radiolaria, holoplanktonic protozoa widely distributed in the world's oceans. Also very important to the existence of all life on Earth, I'm not a scientist, so if you want an explanation, please ask Mr. Google or Ms. Siri instead. Now that will depend on the settings you have on your iPhone. Some people like to hear Siri in a male voice. I've put the feminine here to counteract Mr. Google, who I don't know whether it's male or female or somewhere in between possibly. And I've gone with the politically correct Ms. as opposed to Mrs. or Miss. So kudos to the new movements and gender classification, I guess, for that one. Okay, moving right along before we get too bogged down in politics. Where would you find these patterns? Now this is something, and here we have this and this. Okay, so your time to work out what these patterns are stops right now, and they are, of course, the what would you call it, the hairs, the fibers on the wings of a butterfly, maybe scales, I guess. So I've always associated scales with fish and things that we used to use in the bakery. But anyway, so this is a butterfly, and these things here you probably recognize as being birds. They're winged sort of flying things, and taking on all different shapes, sizes, colors, and yeah, looking very magnificent in all their natural glory. You've probably seen some of these flying around in your garden, not these species in particular, but birds, possibly sparrows, miners, maybe crows, something like that. So anyway, some people believe, i.e. that means they have a faith, that nature and life itself came from a moment in time long ago, usually referred to as the Big Bang. Now I say they have to believe this in faith. Faith is usually recognized as seeing something that you can't believe or believing that's true. That's actually not a very good definition of faith. We learn a lot of things by faith when you're learning math and numbers and language, information and geography class. You've never been to a place, but you believe the teacher or you believe the textbooks that tell you about that, and that's how you gain information. A lot of information is also gained by what we call empiricism, and that means observing things scientifically. Now I'm using the proper usage of science here, scientia being the Latin word for knowledge, and true science, I'm not talking about pseudoscience, but true science is observing something happening, and then you can make observations, and then this becomes a law. Now, a lot of what have previously been recognized as hypotheses and theories are now sort of being taught as law. So this is why people actually believe, i.e. having faith, that we did come about by Big Bang or through the evolutionary processes, when actually there's no laws to dictate that these things have actually happened. Okay, so anyway, if you did see something happening, like, law of gravity, there's a really obvious example. You drop your pen on the ground, you pick it up, you can do that 100,000 times, and gravity doesn't change. So therefore, a law is made about these things. Nobody ever saw the Big Bang. If they did, they would be dead on the explosion, I guess. So this is completely irrational to believe that these things, meaning these theories about Big Bang and evolution, occurred. Ask yourself these questions. Number one, an explosion first requires matter and energy. Actually, I can just come up with a new word and say mattergy, which would be both things occurring. Remember, energy is sort of like, what do they call that? Matter and energy, I guess they change between one and the other or something. Where did this come from? Did something come from nothing, or does the universe come from an infinite source? Some people, now when they, the Big Bang Theory has changed a lot over the last 20 or 30 years since I was at school, and scientists are always, creating new sort of theories about this. One of the latest trends, I guess, is to bring up the theory of the multiverses and things like this. Again, they're just theories. They're completely based, not even really on a faith, but just sort of a creative thinking, I would think. So number two, does an explosion lead to order and life, or chaos and death? Now this is a very simple question. It should have a simple answer, i.e. an explosion leads to chaos and death. And here's one example to prove it. This was the atomic bomb which was exploded over Nagasaki in 1945, leading to huge destruction and great numbers of dead people. Okay, so very tragic, but it does prove my point. Here is a forest teeming with life. Imagine walking through a forest and finding a wristwatch on the ground. Do you assume the watch is a part of the natural surroundings that came about as a result of a big explosion and then billions of years of evolutionary processes? Or do you assume that someone dropped their watch? Now, I would assume that you would think someone dropped their watch, which means that you're a rational thinker, you're not crazy. A wristwatch demands a creator, yet even the most sophisticated wristwatch is a very simple machine compared to a simple weed growing in the forest. A very clever person can make a wristwatch, or even a team of geniuses, and now they create robots to make the watches, of course. But even the world's greatest scientists have failed to create or recreate even the simplest of life forms, even when given all the ingredients to begin with. So, they start off with all the atoms and the particles, the oxygen, nitrogen, and carbons and all that. And they can sort of produce something from something, but then again, this actually proves that you need intelligence to be able to create these things. Here's an example pulled off the internet, an illustration of the inner workings of a watch, courtesy of Encyclopedia Britannica Incorporated. Thank you very much, so you can get the credit for that. Quite simple when compared to the inner workings of a leaf tissue anatomy, which could very well be of a weed. I can't give credit to the diagram to anybody because there's no name on this, but thank you for that anyway. This is just the leaf, of course. This doesn't include, you've got the stem and the roots and the flowers, of course, which sort of a lot of the plant forms have. And what's more amazing is that a weed can recreate itself as opposed to a watch, where eventually it'll just get old and rusty and get thrown out, probably recycled, but certainly it's not going to procreate and create another watch. Because wristwatches are not too accurate and scientists need accuracy for weird experiments and the good of humanity, and note getting government grants and Nobel Prizes, they developed atomic clocks. The following slide is a picture of FOCS1. I think that's an acronym. It could be just pronounced Fox 1. This is a continuous cold calcium fountain atomic clock in Switzerland, which began operating in 2004. It is so accurate it only fluctuates, and this is the term they use to mean goes out of time, by 1 second in 30 million years. However, it doesn't look very pretty, and it's a bit too big to fit on your wrist, as you're about to see right now. This is the Fox 1. It looks quite complicated. There's computers off in the background there. This whole thing is probably one big computer. And again, it doesn't look very fashionable. You wouldn't want to take it out for dinner. Sometime after 2004, scientists found that the Fox 1 was not quite accurate enough, and they probably wanted more government grants and prizes and accolades and promotions. So they developed something even better. This is the US National Institute of Science and Technology's ultra-stable ytterbium lattice atomic clock. Excuse me if I didn't quite pronounce that word properly. Ytterbium, I think it is. But anyway, this is far more fashionable, perhaps, a little bit more complex than the previous one that we just saw, and a lot more accurate. However, the ultra-stable ytterbium lattice atomic clock soon became obsolete because scientists at the NIST, that's the same institution that made the previous one, soon created something even better. From the NIST website, it says the new strontium clock, it's strontium now, wow, it's so precise it would neither gain nor lose 1 second in about 5 billion years. I've got here 5 billion years with an exclamation mark because it is a very long time. But exactly how long is 1 year anyway? See, the year is the standard by which these clocks are measured. Okay, it becomes sort of the standard time, as it were. So a year, as we've learned at school, is the period of time in which the Earth completes one revolution around the Sun. We have Earth years, and there's Mars years and all the rest of it. We're talking about Earth years here, of course. So this is the Earth going around the Sun one time, approximately 365 days to take up 1 year. But again, there's actually a very accurate time which they try to calculate or to standardize their atomic clocks to. The stars and the planets in the sky are a giant clock and calendar right above our head. So this timepiece, meaning the celestial timepiece above us, is so precise it never loses accuracy. See, these atomic clocks created by these great scientists and geniuses, and with all these government grants from taxpayers' money, of course, is going to try to produce this most amazing thing. Whereas if they just looked up in the sky, they could say, well, okay, this is how we can time things by. So when we're going to do our experiments, let's just look at the sky, perhaps. Anyway, that's up for them to work it out, because that's not my job. But okay, so not only that, it's also very nice to look at, and here I have an example of something very nice to look at in the sky. This is the Eagle Head Nebula, off in some far away corner of the galaxy a long time ago, and probably taken by a great telescope, and again another creation of mankind, possibly Hubble telescope or something very similar. I'm not sure if this is the right way up. You might have to sort of flip it around to get it the right way up. But anyway, so that's looking quite glorious there. Now this is an amazing software. I'm not selling these things, but it was introduced to me by a friend of mine who was doing a study about this regarding times and places and the accuracy of the celestial timepiece in the sky above us. It's called Sky Gazer, a night sky guide. This is the version 1 that you see the picture of the cover here, but it's gone through many versions since. Sky Gazer software enables you to find out exact star formations in the sky from any point on the Earth at any time in history, whether thousands of years ago or thousands of years in the future. So you could say, you know, what did the night sky look like from Babylon in the year 1500 BC? And you punch in the information, and then it would show you a map of the sky at that point. So this goes to show that there was total order and consistency in space regarding the stars and the planetary celestial bodies there. This is a mirror. This is a fairly simple creation, but if you look into it, you'll see probably what is the pinnacle of all creation, and that is yourself. Mankind, obviously, and all its complexities inside, and just the amazing things that go on inside our bodies. For example, inside the DNA now, they can drill down and find different genomes along these little axes here, and these genomes have been able to distinguish what the characteristics of humankind are. These are like little computers, because from the mother to the child, or the parents to the children, all this coded information through the DNA is reproduced and done in such a wonderful way. Now, maybe in 10 or 20 years' time, people will be able to drill down into the genomes and see something else inside the genomes and what they're made up of. Ultimately, we all come down to everything is atoms, and atoms is light. So we're really just beings of light, if you want to look at it from that perspective. And there's all these amazing things going on around us. Okay, so that's enough from me, and I'll give the final word to this man here, in order you can use your free will and make some more good decisions about gaining information. And here he is right now.